Welcome back to the cheese series, friends. I'm Amanda at Happy Homestead, and today we are going to be making another hard cheese. This is going to be a 2-gallon milk cheese, which will yield approximately 2 pounds of a wheel of cheese from the Home Cheese Making book by Ricky Carroll. This is on page 184, Montasio. Now, Montasio is a cheese that I have never seen in the store. And by the way, quick side note, this is the best part about cheese making, is because you can make cheeses that normally aren't even readily available to you, sometimes not even in specialty stores. That's probably the most exciting part for me, let alone eating the delicious cheeses. So this is a Montasio, and I'm just going to briefly read what it says here. But the legend has it that Montasio was first made in the 17th century in a monastery in northern Italy. And today the cheese is only produced in 2 regions that are neighboring Venice. It's enjoyed as a table cheese when it's aged for 3 months, and as a grating cheese when it's made with skim milk for a drier texture and aged for a year or longer. And you can make it with goat's milk or cow's milk, and we're doing cow's milk today. So again, only made in 2 regions that neighbor Venice. And so is it readily available where you live? Probably not. I don't think it's readily available where we live in the Raleigh, but we're in the Raleigh-Durham area of North Carolina. I am really excited. So I made this once before last year. And as you saw, and you've had me talk about before, I keep a cheese journal, right? With every cheese I make, I go through the process, you know, what worked, what didn't work, and especially when I open it and taste it, what did it taste like? And I remember it being delicious, but I went back in my notebook, and I keep looking over there because my notebook is over that direction. And I wrote down that it was so delicious, so creamy, and so nutty, and so good. And so we're gonna make Montasio again. And so we're gonna use 2 gallons of milk, calcium chloride, 1 packet of thermophilic starter, and a half a packet of the mesophilic. So this cheese has both thermophilic and mesophilic starters. Run it, and then we're going to do a saturated brine, which I'll talk about that when we get to that point. So first we're going to heat the milk to 88 and then add our calcium chloride. So I'm going to get the milk in the pot, start heating it up, and then we'll add our calcium chloride to our filtered water. I've got a 1/4 cup of cool filtered non-chlorinated water. I'm going to add my 1/2 teaspoon of calcium chloride. Oh, I should take the lid off. Okay, we're at 88. I'm going to add in my calcium chloride, stir. One packet of thermophilic starter. Remember, I'm just pouring it over and letting it sit and rehydrate before I stir it in. And 1/2 of a packet of mesophilic starter. Now, when you're doing a 1/2 a packet, you just kind of have to eyeball it, right, to make sure you don't put too much in, but you get the right amount. All right, we're gonna stir our starter in. You wanna make sure you're stirring back and forth as well as top to bottom. Cover and let sit for 1 hour. While our cultures are working, we're gonna put another 1/2 teaspoon in a 1/4 cup of filtered water, but this time our rennet.
That's taking so long.
Okay, we are 89 degrees, so temperature's well. Pouring in our rennet now, right? So the cultures have been working for the last hour, and now it's time to coagulate the milk. So pour in the rennet and stir for a good 30 seconds, again, both back and forth. as well as top to bottom. We're gonna let that sit for 30 minutes. All right, we should have a clean break with our curds, and we do. So we're gonna cut into 1-inch columns. So basically, I'm just doing the horizontal and vertical cuts. I'm not going down and cutting into cubes yet, right? Just columns. I'm gonna let that sit for about 3 minutes, and then we'll cut into smaller curds using a whisk. But right now we're gonna let it sit and let some of that whey come out of the curds. Okay, it's been 3 minutes. I'm gonna use my stainless steel whisk and just start cutting into smaller curds. We wanna get them to about 1/4 inch. I mean, you really can't totally measure that when you're cutting. So you just do the best you can and cut through. So I'm gonna stir these curds every few minutes because you just wanna prevent them from matting. But you want to keep them moving and get as much of the whey out as possible. And we're going to slowly start to increase the heat. Right now, we are at 86. We want to get up to 102, but you don't want to do that too fast. Over about a 30-minute period is what we want to do that with. Slowly heating up the curds, letting them sit in the acidified whey, right? And getting out as much more whey as possible before we put them into the cheese mold. We are at 102. It took about 25 minutes to get there. So now we're gonna keep it at 102 for 1 hour. Again, the whole purpose is to get moisture out and let the whey be a little bit more drier. So this is real life. So we're gonna let this sit for 1 hour, but again, continuing to stir every few minutes, and then then we'll put our curds in our cheesecloth lined mold. So I'll see you in an hour.
What's up, girl? What's up, girl?
I can't do this. Okay, I've got 11 minutes left in my hour. I'm at 104 degrees. I've just been kind of hovering between 104 and 105. But we're releasing a lot of whey. It looks good. I have a teapot on the stove as well that I'm warming up some water, because once we're up with our hour here, we're going to let the curds settle to the bottom, pour off some of the whey, enough to get to the line of the curds, right? So we'll pour off enough whey to just meet right at the curds, the top of the curds. And then we're gonna pour in very slowly some 125-degree water. And that's just, again, all about helping to release more of the whey, is by having that warm water in there. And then we'll stir that, kind of keep that going up to 110 degrees for about 10 minutes. And then we're gonna ladle into our cheese mold. So I just wanted to come back with an update so that you understand that during the last 10 minutes or so, you want to be heating up some water on the side. 1 hour is up. I've been letting the curds sit for about the last 3 to 4 minutes. So they're at the bottom, right? So now I'm going to pour off some of the whey just to bring that whey level down to the curd line. We want to bring this up to 110 degrees now. We're at 99. And we're going to do this over a 5-minute period. Remember, by adding 125-degree water. All right, our temperature is just at 110. So I'm just going to stir this for a minute, and then we're going to put this in our cheese mold.
Actually, I'll get water right here. Put it on a bottle cup.
Okay, we're gonna get this into the mold here nice and tight. And then we're gonna press at 5 pounds for 15 minutes before we flip and rewrap. Flipped it, rewrapped it, and now it's pressing around 10 pounds and it's gonna go for 12 hours. But considering it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it's gonna go longer than 12 hours and I will take it out of the press in the morning. So I'll see you tomorrow morning. Good morning. It is the next morning and we are gonna unwrap our cheese. You know, I was thinking about this. If nothing else on this channel, I'm authentic because this is the morning. You see the craziness in the house. I hope you can relate. All right, the cheese has been sitting. It is 8:30, so it's been sitting for 18 and a half hours, so a little bit longer. No big deal. I try not to get hung up on that. But we are gonna take it out of the press, out of the cheesecloth, and we're gonna let it sit on a very clean drying rack, right? And I say this, right, you want to like put this in your dishwasher and like really hot water sterilize it, because if you ever bake bread and have bread on here, you do not want to contaminate your cheese with anything else, especially yeast, and that's a huge no-no. So a very clean drying rack, and I've got like my little picnic things again like I used in my cheddar cheese recipe, and we're just gonna peep this on top, and we're gonna let our cheese kind of form a little bit of a natural rind over the next 12 to 24 hours. I'll probably do this for about 24 hours, and then we'll come back and we'll put it in our saturated brine, which again, I'll talk about that when we get there. So let's unmold the cheese. Okay, our cheese looks fantastic. Yep, has a very light, sweet smell. So I'm gonna go let this air dry and we'll come back in 24 hours. Good morning, we are back. It is time to get our Montasio cheese in our saturated brine. So As I said, when we got to this point, I would explain what saturated brine is. I'll show it to you. I've got a half gallon here. I made this in August, end of August of 2021, so it's a little over a year old. I'll probably make a new one come the new year, but it's basically a salt water and you can reuse it, right? Because it is so highly salted, hence the term saturated, it actually doesn't allow anything bad to really grow in. So you can use it cheese after cheese. I have a vintage Pyrex dish here that I'll show you in just a sec, and I pour my saturated brine in there, and then I take my cheese, which let me show you the cheese. It's got little ridges from my drying rack, but it looks great. It smells really good too. And so then we're gonna put our cheese in, and the cheese basically floats, just like you would float in the ocean with the salt water. The cheese floats in the saturated brine. And we're gonna leave it in the brine at room temp. Now, every recipe will tell you, are you refrigerating it, right? Is it a lower temp while it's in the brine, or is it room temp? This one for the Montasio is room temp for 6 hours, and we're gonna flip it halfway through. I'm just gonna pour some in. And we're gonna take our cheese. Now, because this has been up, I'm gonna flip it and go the other way and just put it in. Now, the top of the cheese doesn't always get covered with the brine, right? Because it floats. And so you just sprinkle some salt on top. And that's it. And we're gonna put the cover on and leave this for 3 hours. And in 3 hours, I'll flip it, do the same thing, put salt on the exposed top and let it sit for 3 more hours. So 6 hours total. So a salt brine just helps remove any extra moisture from the cheese, and it just helps the aging process go a little bit quicker, a little bit easier, right? Because more moisture has been drawn out. Okay, folks. Our Montasio is ready to come out of the brine. So I let it sit for 6 hours, right? And halfway through at the 3 hour mark, I flipped it, sprinkled some more Redmond real salt on top, and let it go for that remaining 3 hours. So let's take it out of the brine. Okay, the 6 hours is up. It is time to take the Montasio out of our saturated brine. Remember, at the 3 hour mark, halfway through, I flipped it and sprinkled some more of the Redmond real salt on top, and then let it go for the remaining 3 hours. So we're gonna take it out and put it on a very clean, sterilized tray here on top of a plate. We're gonna let it drain and sit for about a day or two. We're just gonna see how long it takes to get a good rind on it and making sure it is fully dry. And then we will vacuum seal it for the cave. Okay, I'm gonna let this air dry for a day or two at the most, and then we'll vacuum seal it. So I'll see you in just a little bit. Welcome back. It has been about 3 days that my Montasio has been aging here in room temperature, and it's always something in this house. It is literally always something. It doesn't have a hard rind like the cheddar would, but it feels firm, it smells amazing, and now it just needs to age longer. So we're gonna vacuum seal that for more longer term aging. Montasio can go anywhere from 2 to 12 months. The longer you age it, the drier it gets into more like a grating cheese, almost like a Parmesan. So I'm gonna go kind of smack in the middle around 6 to 7 months. Always label your cheeses and the date that you put them in your cave. And once a week, right, so it'll be sitting in the cave like this. Once a week I go in, take 60 to 90 seconds, and I flip every cheese. And so you want to flip your cheese once a week while it's aging. It just helps the moisture that is still in it distribute evenly, helps the aging process become more even, and just makes your cheese that much more delicious. So Montasio is in the books. Thanks for joining me today. Stay happy, stay healthy. Bye-bye.